So we're here with Mike, head brewer at MIA Brewing, Mike Demetrus from MIA Brewing, down from Chicago, previously at Finch's Brewery, and he's bringing all this Chicago, San Francisco knowledge down to the Miami brewing scene. And thank you for coming about it.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate the opportunity.
So, you know, we're going to dig in a little bit. We're going to get into your kind of background a little bit. So, you know, I said Chicago, but I think the start of this whole beer world for you was in San Francisco, right?
That's right, yeah. Late 90s, I started homebrewing. I was actually working graveyard shift at a gas station when I was going to college. And my manager was a home brewer, and I'd never even heard of making your own beer before. So he's like, split the cost, we'll split a batch, and we'll brew in my house. And I was hooked. My folks, they're like, what are you doing? You know, like, what are these buckets in your room? And I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about the smell, you know, and yeah.
What were you drinking when you started the homebrew? I mean, were you drinking like?
I think the craft beer that turned me on was Barney Flat's Oatmeal Stout by Anderson Valley. And my first like 4 homebrews were oatmeal stouts.
There you go.
Yeah, I was.
And now you're brewing oatmeal stout again.
Yeah, ever since. Yeah, absolutely.
Staying with tradition.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. So then you start homebrewing late 90s, and when does it start to hit you that this is going to be a little bit bigger part of my life than?
Yeah, I mean, after college, I just kind of like continued the bartending and really got serious about that, and was making fancy cocktails for years and running bars in San Francisco. And, I moved to Chicago with it, but over those years, my passion, my hobby started getting more expensive and bigger and taking over the garage.
I think it happens to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I never had a lot of money, so I was making a lot of my equipment, you know, by hand, which I think is a really valuable thing to go through for homebrewers. I always feel bad for, you know, like some of the guys I work with in Chicago. They're like, yeah, I'm going to start homebrewing, and I have $10,000 to play with. And so they'll buy a Sapco, and they'll buy all this equipment. I'm like, what are you doing, man? You got to make this stuff first. You know, you can buy it later, but you got to figure out how to make this stuff.
Yeah,
that's what's special about our passion, you know.
That way when you're on this, you really appreciate it.
Yeah, you understand what works and what doesn't, and, you know, what affects what, you know. So after a few years in Chicago, I got my lucky break and got into the beer industry and kind of worked my way up, and after a short while I was running a brewery, and then got some ownership and kind of cut my teeth in an amazing craft beer community, you know. So I mean, I was humbled to be working alongside, you know, some really amazing inspired people. So
that's Finch's.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, going back to San Francisco, how long were you homebrewing in San Francisco for before the move to Chicago?
Well, I started in Santa Cruz, which is where I grew up, and then I was in San Francisco for about 8 years. So all in all, about 10 years before I moved to Chicago.
Oh, so you were like a pro home brewer then at that point in time.
I'd made a lot more mistakes than somebody just starting out.
There you go. I mean, the thing is, the reason I talk about San Francisco is because San Francisco is one of my favorite cities. It's got, you know, the food culture. Got a very established beer culture. Yeah. You go into those bars and there is, you know, 30 different craft beers on tap.
Yeah.
So I mean, how much did that influence you going forward? To grow as a brewer in that kind of environment.
In Chicago?
Well, in San Francisco.
Well, so I lived about 4 blocks from Tornado. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Lower Haight neighborhood. Amazing, one of the best craft beer bars in the country, arguably, and I was there a lot, and learned a lot about, you know, the ins and outs and what to send back. I think a lot of being a beer fan, a craft beer fan in San Francisco is sending beer back. You know, it's just like, it's a thing. Yeah.
I sent beer back once in my life here.
Yeah.
I've had the beer a million times. They popped the bottle right in front of me, they poured it in the glass. I'm like, this is flat, it's a bad bottle. And it was such a production, they brought the manager out to talk to me. They're like, did you have this on tap before or in the bottle? I said, I've had it both ways, it's not good. Take it back.
That's great, attention to, like all proprietors should have that kind of investment into what's wrong with their product. What really convinced me that my soul belongs to this industry or this passion is the Anderson Valley Beer Festival in Northern California, in the Anderson Valley.
Blast.
You camp out and you spend 2 days just going hog wild with a couple thousand people, and it's like every Northern California and Cascadian brewery.
Right.
And it's
speaking weird languages.
Yeah, speaking bootling, and it's just amazing.
That's awesome.
And so every year, that was like the highlight of the year. That thing that you look forward to. In the Midwest, it's a Great Taste of the Midwest up in Madison. Equally as amazing.
Yeah. Was that part of your kind of like fascination with this? I mean, I know it's part of mine. It's the ability to bring people together. I think craft beer really brings people together. I think it creates a community. I mean, there's definitely a community.
Right.
And I think it's such an approachable thing that so many people are coming into. I mean, is that kind of like the reason why it's kind of elevated for you?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, people that would otherwise have absolutely nothing in common. It's I don't know, like you can talk to somebody for 2 hours, at one of these events, or and find out amazing things about them, and clearly you would never even give this person the time of day if there wasn't that common denominator.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the community that is spawned from something as simple and as in my opinion perfect as beer is an amazing one. It's a powerful one.
Yeah. All right. So I mean, another thing I've noticed being in San Francisco is that beer is more than just something you drink on its own. It has a real place in the culinary world.
Right.
And is that something you're applying to your beers now? Is that something that's important to you? I mean, is it? To me, it's incredibly important. I guess, especially to the growth of craft beer. I mean, a lot of people see wine as like the perfect beverage because they see wine as a food drink.
Right.
I think beer can be way more adaptable to different types of food.
Yeah, I agree. It's more versatile, and I don't ever see beer replacing wine, but I see beer stepping up to be as much a contender as wine is at the dinner table.
Right.
I've worked in fine dining. I worked for years at the Waldorf Astoria in Chicago, and learned a lot from chefs there about letting amazing ingredients kind of speak for themselves. Don't drown them out, and don't be too crazy. Don't throw too many things into a pot.
Right.
Be sparing, and let the flavors. You can complement flavors, and it's all in being subtle and letting them kind of show themselves off.
Like you were saying, it's an honest medium. So it's giving people what the ingredients are.
Right.
Right. I mean, letting them shine through.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
And a lot of people that are new to craft don't really know what malt tastes like, and they don't really know what different hops taste like. They don't know what yeast is capable of. And so when you can do something simply but done elegantly, done well, and say this is at the very base of it all, this is just 3 things or just 4 or 5 things.
Right.
This is what you're tasting, and then explain it to them. And I think that's really important, is whoever's doing the serving participate in the experience as much as the customer is willing.
Right.
And explain what the experience, talk them through the experience.
Sure, yeah.
If it's a new one.
I mean, it's important, I think. I mean, it's just as much as what's in the glass. I mean, they got to understand what they're doing if it's going to keep growing.
Right.
I remember the first beer that I really felt that with was Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the first beer that I said, wow, I mean, I'm tasting the hops.
Yeah.
I'm tasting the malt. I'm tasting everything. I mean, it's like a real, beer. I mean, what was the first beer that you had that you kind of were like, whoa, this is beer. This is what beer's supposed to taste like?
Right, yeah. I mean, like I was saying, Barney Flats, I definitely remember Sierra Nevada being a big eye-opener for me. Of course, who didn't? And Anchorstein, they were the 2 big players, and everybody told them, don't even try it. Budweiser is the king of beers.
Right.
Like you won't exist going into the 90s, and they trudged through the 80s when nobody was doing it, and were extremely successful.
Right.
They knew what they were doing, and they had passion, and they believed in what they were doing. But yeah, I mean, I can't say there's one beer that I can point out and say this is the one that changed me. But there are like were milestones definitely with a lot of those.
That Barney Flats oatmeal stout though stands out.
Oh man, phenomenal,
Right.
phenomenal.
So when do you end up going to Chicago?
That was 2008. Yeah, 2000 end of 2007.
Did you go there specifically to start brewing, or did you?
No, I just with some family out there, and just we're looking for a change. Rents are outrageous. We're outrageous in San Francisco. Now they're unreal.
Are unreal,
Yeah.
right?
I thought I had a bargain at like $3,600 for a 2-bedroom, and now that's a studio.
It's a studio now.
Yeah. So
I went there with my wife, and I'm like, all right, we're staying here. This is the perfect city. Start looking at studios, and it's like $3,000 to $5,000 for a studio in the city.
yeah,
It's out of control. Well, you went to Chicago. Did you go straight to Finch's?
No, I ran a couple bars, and I put the bars together at the Waldorf. It was a private luxury hotel called the Elysian before that, and then Waldorf came in and bought it, and did that for a couple years, and then there was some overlap there, and then the Finch's opportunity came along, and my life changed forever.
There you go.
Yeah.
And what was your official title at Finch's?
Well, I was the operations manager, brewer, and a co-owner.
Pretty much everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, not
Yeah. You were Finch's.
right. We were all Finches.
There you go.
I was not the head brewer though.
All right.
And that's part of the reason I left. They're doing, they were doing great stuff, but it came to the point where I had the opportunity and wanted to start my own project where I could have more creative control, and with somebody who kind of shared my vision, and so I ended up here.
We're gonna get into your vision
Okay.
in a second, but so I mean you're not the head brewer of Finch's. I'm assuming you're learning a hell of a lot.
Absolutely. Richard Grant is the head brewer. Amazingly talented individual.
Is he still the head brewer there?
No, he's not. He just left. I learned from him detail, consistency, when to take shortcuts and when not to.
Right.
And those are really important on a production level. You can teach yourself all you want from books and home brewing and all that, but when you enter into a room like this, on equipment like this, there's so much that you need to be taught.
Right.
And
beyond brewing.
And just working in a factory, because that's what we're doing. It's working in small factories.
I mean, you want to stay true to your craft, your art,
right?
What you've worked hard to become,
right?
But you also need to turn a profit,
right? Absolutely.
And so the balance between that is the difficulty, I guess, or the difference between maybe this and a brew pub.
Yeah. The margins are tiny when you're production only, which we were. So we ended up expanding our markets to 17 states, I think, and 24 different distributors. And I don't even know where they're at now. I'm sure there's more than that.
Right.
But
I mean, they're still around, which is
oh, for sure,
it's
they're doing well.
Thing, right?
Yeah.
And I was going to that is which is amazing to think they're still around in a city like Chicago, which is huge beer scene.
Yeah.
Some would argue, I mean, you've got Colorado, you've got Oregon, you've got California, but some would say Chicago is the biggest and best.
It's looking that way. Arguably, I have some bias, but the last I checked, there were like 40 breweries either open or in planning, just in the city limits.
Right.
And then like 75 open or in planning in the Chicago land, greater Chicago land.
Is that because
it's insane?
Is that because the city is inviting these breweries?
I wouldn't say so.
No?
It wasn't extremely easy, as far as I remember, opening Finch's. I think it's a cultural thing. Like, I mean, before Prohibition, there was well over that number in Chicago, in the Chicago area.
Right.
In the next few years, they'll probably exceed the pre-Prohibition numbers. But there's a history there. There's a culture, and it's being revitalized, and it's amazing to watch.
Right.
Now, most of those breweries that existed pre-Prohibition were lager houses, and I'm guessing most of that beer tasted similar. You had, I think the difference is, people before Prohibition didn't have a choice but to buy local, to buy handmade.
That's awesome, and we're going back to that.
And now we have a choice, and we're still doing it.
Right. It's better.
Yeah.
When you're supporting the people that you're living with, one.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing about craft beer. Here's the political spiel, because we're in Florida, and we're going to get into that, because this brewery has been in production, or has been in construction for so long because of it, where we're at.
Yeah.
I think people are failing to see how much importance something like this has to culture. I mean, it brings local businesses together. It's employing local people. I mean, the other brewer here is Piero, local guy.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to hire a bunch of people for the tasting room, a bunch of help for the back room. You guys do production here. You guys are going to distribute. How many jobs is that creating? And I think people are finally starting to understand that that's something we need to support.
Right.
And so I'm happy to say that you guys are supporting it. You guys are doing it. But that's what craft beer is. I mean, it's supporting this local feel, isn't it? I mean,
craft beer is, well, I'll say just in terms of labor, it's wonderfully inefficient when it comes to labor. And a brewery this size will probably have, in a few years at full production, we'll probably have a staff of 15, just behind the scenes.
Right.
And we'll be putting out a fair amount of beer, but they'll have less people than that, at a Budweiser facility, because it's all automated.
It's a button.
This isn't automated. This is done by hand. So
I mean, we're tasting,
creating a lot of jobs. This industry.
I've brewed here with you on the little mini system you're still using, the Sapco, and we're tasting, your hands at work here. I mean, you can. Taste
I washed them.
There you go. And we were talking about sweat earlier in the brewery, so we're tasting your hands at work here. But you can taste it, you can feel it, and I think that's why people are getting behind it, is because you know that someone put literally their sweat into this thing.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, in Chicago, so you obviously probably grew as a brewer immensely because you've got all this competition around. You've got a company that's trying to compete in this competition.
And that's the thing, though. It's not really competition. As long as the market grows, as breweries open, as long as you as a brewery, as a brewery owner, as a business, you create your piece of it. There's so much untouched, untapped market out there. Yeah. Then it's your responsibility, especially coming up in an established brewing beer community, a community like Chicago where people are savvy and they know craft. It's your responsibility to make converts and to get the word out and to tell people, hey, because even in a place like Chicago, the vast majority of people still don't drink craft.
All right.
Now, there's a lot more there than here, for instance, but there's still plenty of room. There's a reason why all these breweries are implanting there and all these breweries are implanting here, because there's so many people that still don't know that craft is this amazing option, and a small investment, an increase in your beer expense has this huge reward, both in terms of personal and then what you're giving back. So it's just a matter of educating a little bit. So
was that part of the allure of coming down here? The fact that I have a market down there that needs to be educated. It's basically untapped. I mean, we're probably one of the youngest beer communities probably in the country, and
clearly about to explode.
Right.
Not only that, it's not naive. It's kind of like you have a toddler and they immediately know how to use an iPhone. like Miami is just a few years into this craft thing,
right?
And yet has a very developed palate.
Yeah, I mean, you have to see something in it because you've got a wife, you've got kids, you've got a life in Chicago. Hey, let's pack it all up. I'm going to be the lead brewer at Miami. What did you see in Miami to make you say, okay, all that effort is worth the move to a city that has one production brewery, probably wasn't even open when you moved down here.
Mark, have you ever been in a winter in Chicago?
Okay, I've heard about the winters in Chicago. No,
You've
I
heard
haven't.
about okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. You wouldn't need to ask that
So it
question.
wasn't too much.
Have you ever stepped 1 foot off a plane in a February at O'Hare?
So it wasn't too much of a tug then.
No. I mean, Chicago is a magical place. I love it to death, and I can totally see myself moving back at some point. But yeah, it just wasn't like professionally. It wasn't. I didn't see my immediate future there.
Right.
Miami had the allure of being an amazing, like it's like the New York City of Latin America. There's all these cultures and flavors. The weather's awesome. I'm a beach guy. I grew up on the beach, so there's that. But there was so much that there was a little bit I knew about, and then so much I didn't know about that I was just like mosquito to the flame. Like I want to be a part of this. I want to understand it. I want to experience it. I want to immerse myself, and then see if I can affect things positively, and kind of be a part of this this first wave of what's going on here, and it's so clearly about to happen.
Right. I mean, we've got neighborhoods like Wynwood that are gonna have 5 breweries soon.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are gonna have Biscayne Bay down the streets.
Yeah.
You know, so there's I see the growth. It's awesome. You think part of that is that what you're talking about? There's a lot of different. It's like New York, right? Of Latin America. We've got a lot of different influences here. A lot of ability to create a lot of different flavors that a lot of different palates are going to be able to approach.
Right.
I mean, you could put different stuff in a beer here. I'm sure that you couldn't put somewhere else because maybe the culture down here is more accepting of different sorts of flavors.
Mm-hmm. And vice versa. I think there's a big renaissance going on in a lot of the country to just adhere to the classic styles, try to understand them more, and really play to the subtleties of a style.
Sure.
I don't think Miami has any interest in that right now.
Sure.
And I think it may happen eventually, but
that's Miami. I think in general, it's a city that's like
it's big. It's,
you know, screw the general, I mean, yes, tradition is important, but we're such a young city. I mean, what is tradition here, right? So it's like let's create our own identity. I mean, and that's kind of like what you're doing with the Kolsch. You're putting your own spin on it. Mm-hmm. So is that going to go in? Is that going to go into your mind when you're sitting here and you're thinking, when you're up here, you're thinking of the next ingredient list?
Well, you know, like the way I look at beer is, I think as a brewer, it's my responsibility. It's our responsibility. If we're going to, before you play with a classic style, or any style really, like before you tweak it, alter it, take away from, add to, or borrow, you need to understand it and maybe not master it, but you need to be able to brew that beer and have it be good and be a good example.
Sure.
So I don't think that making some boysenberry cobbler Oktoberfest as a home brewer is. I'm not going to give it too much credit because I want to taste your Oktoberfest.
Right.
I want to know that you understand the style.
Sure.
Before I dive into something like that, I want to know the history of it, and I want to know why that style came to be, and then the fundamental pieces that come together and why those are to make that style.
Right.
And then, and only then, tweak it and make it your own, which I think is the most purely American quality that you can have.
Yeah.
But
I've got this thing I tell people: there's nothing more American than craft beer right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's local. It is local economy. It is local products. It is local business. And it is handmade. It is back to the source. And hit it right on the head, I think. I mean, this is America right here.
Absolutely.
Without being cheesy.
And the same principles apply, I think, to so many other things. That the old world, all of the cultures and traditions we get these from our like in beer, our classic styles. We get those from the old world. We get them from England. We get them from Germany. We get them from Poland. We get them from Belgium. We get them from even Latin America. We get them from Mexico. We get them from all over the world. But their hands are tied either by law, the Reinheitsgebot, or by centuries-old tradition, where they can't. Can I swear on them?
Yeah, of course.
They can't fuck with the style.
There you go. Yeah, fuck is okay on this. This is the internet.
They can't fuck with it, and we can, and we should. Once we understand it, and once we have fully wrap our head around it and appreciate it. And I think that has a lot. I think that's Miami too. It's all these different cultures. It's all these different people and flavors and ideas coming together. And I think it's important to understand to not just mash this all together and say this is Miami, but to look at us individually, and each of these things, it takes each of these things and all these histories and cultures and traditions and that makes Miami.
Right.
In the same sense.
Right.
That's what an American beer is.
Right. Hey, because that's a good point. I mean, you got Wynwood, 30 minutes away, 25 minutes away, and their beers don't taste anything like your beers. I mean, you guys have a different spin on the same styles of beer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, Miami is, you've got Little Haiti, you've got Little Havana, you've got, name your neighborhood, and that's what is Miami. It's these different things coming together to create one Miami. And I think it's a good point you made. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's right. Yeah. I mean, so I guess who was your biggest influence in the way you brew, and kind of how did they develop your philosophy? What is your philosophy when you're going in there and you're saying, I'm going to create this culture, I'm going to put this spin on it, I'm going to create this IPA, and I'm going to put this what does it mean when you say I'm putting my spin on it?
I mean, I don't think of myself as having a signature style, and maybe others could say that, but I don't think of. I think in which way would I like this to be different or unique to one experience?
Sure.
A place or a time. So, I've worked with brewers, and I mentioned Richard Grant, huge inspiration for me, and I learned how to really put great recipes together and test them out and know what sticks and what doesn't.
Right.
I've worked with some really great and thoughtful chefs that have given me great advice on flavor pairings and that sort of thing.
Right.
So
we had a conversation in the past about, you said you want your beers to be paired with certain kinds of food, and it's really important to you. I love that about your beers, is that you're trying to create food beers, you're trying to create pairings with different types of foods that complement your beer quality-wise and stylistically. How important is it when you're going into the brewing or the thought process kind of beer? Are you thinking about culinary? Are you thinking about, I want this beer to kind of...
Well, when I mentioned that, I think I've seen for years it was it was like this pattern, this style where breweries would especially larger regional breweries, they send out a rep to Joe's Pub that's like, hey, I want to do a beer dinner.
Right.
Okay, great. They send out a rep. They send out their core beers. And they're like, okay, so now they sell $25, $50 tickets.
Right.
People sit around and they have this rep talk. Okay, so the cheese dip has our Imperial Red in it, and the hot wings were braised in our stout.
Right.
And it's like, what's the point? And if that's that food is how you want people to associate your beer, then that's fine.
Right.
But I don't see what the point is. I mean, look, I don't think beer is a pinkies up kind of experience, but it's higher than that. It's somewhere in between, which is a big broad.
Right.
So the way I've
you could pair beer with a cheese plate. People see cheese plates as a wine only thing.
No, absolutely.
But a well-made beer can be. I mean, people used to eat cheese with beer before cheese with wine, probably, and so that's kind of like you're thinking, right? I mean, it's like this is more than cheeseburgers, wings, and hot dogs.
Right.
This is. You can put this with an oyster.
Right.
You can put this with tartare. You can put this with truffles.
I mean, I know it's not always obvious because some of our beers are just straightforward. This is good. I'll have another. But I know we put a lot of thought into it.
Sure.
Piero and myself, we put a lot of thought into our beers, and I want to make sure that if somebody's having a meal and they think that food and that beer, most people know when there's a lot of thought that goes into a meal versus a meal that's been thrown together. So I just want to make sure that the bar has been set.
Sure, and this is the point in time where we put Piero's picture here. Can we edit this? Can we put a green screen here to put Piero? All right, so now we're in Miami.
He had to run the Dominican for the week, but the Dominican Republic for the week. But
I wish he would have been
here.
here.
He'll be back next week.
You have him sitting here.
Great guy.
What have you taken from San Francisco, from Chicago? I mean, it's probably great for us in Miami that you were in those two cities before coming to us. What have you taken from San Francisco and Chicago that you're going to bring to Miami? I think that, again, it's such a young beer scene here, even culinary scene. I mean, for the most part, we're getting a big boom of it now. And those are two cities that have had it. Mm-hmm. I think it's important to bring people in like yourself who have had that experience. What would you say is the one thing that those two places have that Miami should kind of strive for in the future to kind of grow this industry?
I don't know. I really don't want to hold Miami up to the expectation or a lens of another city.
Sure.
When I first moved to San Francisco, I thought it was the cultural mecca of the world, and I was so blown away by it. And then I moved away, and I was like, well, I don't know if I think it was a little too wrapped up into itself and a little too not aware of what's going on in the world. I went to Chicago, and then people are like, oh well, Chicago's 2 years behind San Francisco. I'm like, what does that even mean?
Right.
And so I kind of thought that. I was like, well, what did they mean by that? And then I started looking around. No, this is Chicago.
Right.
Like maybe they're talking about fashion, or they're talking about food. Or
sure.
Chicago. It's a totally different
right.
animal. And then I came here, and people are like, oh well, Miami's 5 years behind. It's like, okay, stop. Like Miami is, especially this city, is so unlike any city in this country.
Right. I think
any
that's
city.
Right. Yeah.
So how can you how could anyone say that, well, it's so many years behind, this city, or, you just can't make those parallels, and I don't think there's any point. Miami's on a very unique trajectory in terms of craft beer, that it's got this sophisticated palate. I came down here and people are like, yeah, I just started drinking craft beer a year ago, and I'm drinking sours, drinking gozas, and I'm drinking barrel-aged, lamb. I was like, what? Yeah. Party on, let's do it. This is great.
Yeah, in a place that was
like, I hope I can make those beers, man. Like,
it's a place that probably was drinking Heineken's on South Beach 2 years ago,
right? Or like 8 months ago.
Right.
But I love it. I mean, that's awesome.
Right.
Like, so where are we going to be in 3 years?
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
And that's so exciting.
Right.
Like,
is that what drew you down here? I mean, did you know that was how it was here?
No, I didn't. No, not at all. No, I got here. I visited first.
Strictly the winters.
Yeah. And then it was just like, I was blown away.
Right.
And I was like, okay, this is cool. I definitely want to be part of this. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And I would have never guessed it, from afar.
I know that Eddie Leon is one of the owners here. I know that he's very active ownership.
Yeah.
He's like the Mark Cuban of the brewery industry. And we've talked about this a little bit in the past. You guys shared a vision, and that's what kind of drew you down to MIA. What was that vision that kind of drew you down with Eddie?
Well, Eddie's a really great guy. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here, but he's a really great guy. There's 3 owners. They have another company that it's a architectural 3D rendering company.
Might be the reason why this is still like architecturally beautiful.
Right. Well, we have the cool pictures on the Facebook,
right.
the mock-ups. And Eddie's kind of the managing partner.
Yeah.
And really passionate about home brewing. And this is all his kind of brainchild. He's been a home brewer for a couple years now, 2 years, and makes some really great beers. Some of the early recipes were his, and just
I didn't know that.
Really great beers. Yeah. Originally, this was going to be called Most Wanted,
right.
And there was an issue with the name. There was like a vodka company in like Kansas. And they're like, oh no, they sent some samples, and it was just like, you wouldn't even clean your car with it. That's vodka. Okay, great.
This is why you can't have it.
Right. This gold.
And you can keep it.
Right. So, we're gonna, so wanted beverages, most wanted beverages is gonna be the distribution, because there's no issue with the distributor having that name, but the brewery cannot.
It's all about the way
it's in the same class.
Register the trademark.
Yeah, it's booze,
Right.
So anyways, so Eddie and I, we started talking, we met online. That sounded weird, like a chat, like a, Match.com, yeah.
We were on Tinder.
We met on a brewing forum, and Took one long look into his eyes. No, we met.
I like this profile picture. So I clicked on it. And I met my future brewery owner.
No, we talked for a while on the phone, and he started talking about what he was doing and the idea that he had, and just basically brewing, generically speaking, brewing for Miamians and brewing Miami beer.
Right.
So what does that mean? Like I said, it's not necessarily something that's loaded with tropical fruit, although that's definitely a great tool to have in the arsenal. But it's an inspiration, and and he, being native, has an inspiration and had the vision of what those beers will reflect and flavor qualities and kind of profiles. Had some really great beers out the gate. Some of them we tweaked, and then some of them kind of, and then we've added to that lineup. But that was kind of, going into it. It was something not just, definitely not. All businesses are for profit, but it's not. We're not building a money-making machine. And anybody that goes into craft beer to get rich quick is an idiot and went to the wrong seminar. It's a labor of love for sure. And at the end of the day, hopefully you're in the black and you can expand and keep it going. But the idea was to keep it local, and as you see a lot of breweries now expanding, like my former brewery expanding into far markets and planting a lot of seeds. I was more interested, and Eddie was more interested in keeping it local. So Miami-Dade, possibly Broward, that should sustain us for a long time, especially with the vacuum that we have here for production beer. There's no reason we need to be expanding into Jacksonville or Tampa.
All you're going to do is create people flying into the city for this.
Right.
Which is another aspect of craft beer. I mean, you got tourism.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Homeroom Day last year. It was a
Yeah.
disaster a little bit, but
Right.
I mean, you had 10,000 people squeezed in that brewery from all over the world.
I think Sweetwater is the biggest tourist revenue generator for Atlanta. That brewery, it's incredible.
Right. Right. So that's really cool. I mean, so Eddie, I know that, speaking with Eddie, he's got so much trust in you. And I think that's really important for the growth of this brewery.
He does. I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, he seems to just kind of I love Mike. Whatever he thinks is a good idea. Beer seems to be his. He looks so relaxed,
If he doesn't think it's a good idea, he'll tell me in a very nice way, but he'll tell me straight up.
I would love to see him get mad.
No, it doesn't happen.
Yeah. So I guess we'll get into the kind of generic questions. When do you guys expect to be open? I know it's kind of been a work in progress.
My automated answer is 2014, but production, this thing should be running in the next few weeks.
Cool.
We're done, except for a couple pipes need to be wrapped, but we're just waiting on the city to get our TCO, which is our temporary permit to operate.
Right.
So that should be happening this week, next week, and then
a few weeks
we'll be rock and rolling. Tap room, a couple months, so mid to late summer.
It's awesome. It's exciting.
Yeah.
I bet you guys can't wait.
Yeah, we're gonna have 52 taps. We're gonna install 52 taps. We won't have 52 beers. We'll probably double up ours and then do some treatments and that sort of thing. Maybe so it'll be 12 and 12, and then some nitro. We're gonna do some house-made sodas. I have some nice sodas.
Oh man, what was that? That watermelon jalapenos?
Ancho.
Ancho.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Really good.
I haven't drank soda in 6 years, and that made me want to start drinking soda again.
Yeah, that's great. It was dangerous because we'd make a 5-gallon thing of it. We're we're drinking soda all day.
Right. I know that you guys are going to also, through Wanted Beverages, you're going to be bringing in some of the craft stuff from South America, Central America into the tap room. Is that still kind of a pick?
That's up in the air. We're definitely going to have guest taps. So whether that's 5, 10 guest taps, I don't know. But we want to be support craft in general.
Sure.
And so we're going to try to get. We're going to focus on Miami and Florida breweries, and we want to get all their beers represented. And then we have some retail coolers in the front, some reach-in coolers, and we're going to do large format specialty stuff, regional, European, Belgians,
Awesome.
that sort of thing. So
when do you guys expect to start bottling?
not long after production starts.
Okay.
Pierre and I built a 4-head manual bomber filler, or we're probably going to do 750s, like wine bottle size.
Right.
We'll do that out the gate, and then probably around the end of year 1, we'll start doing like retail 12-ounce bottles.
Awesome.
So 6-packs in the store shelves.
Cool.
It's going to take a little bit though.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, is that just due to amount of productions, or is it?
Yeah. So there needs to be revenue because that's a lot of extra expense, but we need to expand because, I mean, at present rate we have 3 40-barrel fermenters, so that's 1,240 gallons a piece. So a big chunk of that's just going to be our tap room, and then we'll have maybe 50 accounts, 50 to 100 accounts at the most. We have another expansion planned for 2 or 3 months from now. We're getting an 80-barrel fermenter.
Oh, man.
A big boy on that back wall, and then another 4 7-barrel fermenters are on order. So we'll have 7 7-barrel fermenters for our pilot system. So
when are you guys slated to open?
Well, my generic answer I tell people is 2014, but in all honesty, we'll probably be there in like 2 or 3 weeks on the production side. So we'll be running this thing. We're just about to get our TCO, which is like a temporary permit to start up the business.
So you'll be getting kegs into restaurants, in the bars,
right?
But tap room is
3 or 4 weeks after that.
Beyond.
Tap room will be another couple months, so like mid to late summer. We still have some construction to do because we're going to pour a slab. We're going to do a big beer garden out there, and then got to do all the furnishings, all the interior stuff. But it's going to be nice though. We're not gonna half-ass anything. So.
Yeah. Well, that's the engineers in the background,
Yeah, I mean those guys are they're masters and slaves to the detail. They're all architects, so right. It's like
it's their first thing. This is like their baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So when can people in Miami expect to see you guys in a restaurant or in a bar?
The earliest. Here's where I definitely don't like to give dates, but assuming we're brewing in, let's say, 3 weeks.
Let's be like.
Let's say a month and a half from now.
There we go.
A month and a half from now.
All right.
So this is mid July already. So the end of August.
September. Let's be conservative.
Okay.
We don't want to put you in any,
all
right. So
is that Labor Day?
Yeah. September. All right. And then when are we going to see bottles?
Bottles are going to take a little bit longer, probably by the end of year 1 for 6-packs. And I think we are going to do glass 6-packs. Right now it's like a big 50-50 for most breweries. Are we going to can versus bottle? And that's a whole other debate. But I think so. But anyways, our 6-packs will be in retail shelves, grocery, liquor stores in probably about a year. But fairly soon after we start production, we're going to start doing bottling by hand, large format, 750s, like wine bottle size. And Piero and I built a hand bottle, a 4-head bottle filler. So we can crank out quite a bit with that. So I'd like to always have some large format of our beers in our retail cold case in the front. So if you want to come in and have a couple pints and then take one as a gift, you can. But we'll also do growler fills,
Cool. Yeah, I was gonna ask that next, so just continue with that.
Yeah, but those are only good for a week or so. If you want to hold on to something, then we'll sell the bottles too.
Awesome. So we're right on the verge of seeing MIA on the market.
Yep.
The facility looks awesome. I bet you can't wait to get on this thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're all just like biting our nails every day for sure.
We are very happy to have you down here. The buzz around this place is awesome.
Yeah.
As someone who's tried, obviously on this video, people see I've tried at least 4. Tried other ones. There are some really awesome beers that are going to be coming our way here in Miami, and it's really exciting to be kind of here while it's still in its infancy.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what you guys are going to do in the future. Is there any parting words that you have?
Oh man, that's tough. You didn't prep me for that.
No, I didn't, man. That's the curveball. I guess, what do you want to see Miami become? That's what I'm trying to get at, as far as beer world is concerned.
I love the fact that in like 2 or 3 years, there's gonna be 20 breweries here, and there will definitely be room for us all. It's not competition really, it's not a race to the top. You know, everybody's got different tastes, so there's plenty of room, we can all thrive. The trick is for us all to make good beer.
Right.
Because that's how we're going to stick out on a national level. Is we work on our consistency. That's something that's a very high priority for me. We have a lab, and I'm going to build that up, and I have a few. We're going to phase it out as far as investment and equipment. And once we get to a certain level, I'd like to open it up to other area breweries to come in and test out their beers, so that they can, because if we have 5 breweries that aren't consistent, they're making inferior product, flawed product, it's gonna negatively reflect on all of us much more than if we had 5 great breweries. So it's really important for all the new breweries in this country right now starting up to make great beer, because it's you know, the weak ones will really bring us down. So make good beer.
Lesson for Miami: consistency and quality.
Yeah.
Rules the day.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. It's fun.
Can't wait to see you guys.
Come and see us.